Okutama Girl. Hello, this happened to me when I was living near Tokyo back in 2009. Living in Japan, my dream of racing in the Drift Grand Prix was close to coming true, but track time was far and expensive to come by, so I would drive about an hour north to Okutama. Okutama is beautiful. It has a giant calm lake and a thick forest with a very old fell to it. The road up to the lake was deserted after 23 hours. Once I would exit the last town, there was nothing but a 2-lane mountain road with amazing hairpin turns, and presented the perfect opportunity to practice with relative safety. In the year and a half that I practiced here, I never ran across another vehicle during my runs up and down the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, and next to the lake, there was a big car park where people can park and go hiking in the woods, or just go over and look at the lake. Across from the car park, there were 6 vending machines. Some sold food items, others sold drinks, and some sold car-related items. The night I encountered who I call Coffee Girl, as I call her, it was about 2:30 or 3 a.m. in November. I was taking a break in the car park when I was walking towards the vending machines to buy hot coffee, when I noticed a young Japanese girl sitting at the end of the row of vending machines. Nothing was out of the ordinary. She was wearing long boots, miniskirt, and a big puffy type jacket, all within the normal fashion for the area. Even though it was cold outside that night, I assumed she was waiting for a friend to pick her up, since she may have missed the train or got into a fight with her boyfriend and he left her behind, and she was waiting for her ride or something like that. I decided to get 2 coffees, a Black Fire coffee, my favorite, in part because it has Godzilla on the side of the can, and a sweet Cafe AU latte that most Japanese girls like from my experience. So I grab both coffees and walk over to her. When I get close to her, I hold out the coffee and in Japanese I say, "Oi sister, here you go." My father is from Osaka, so my Japanese is a bit different from most Tokyo dwellers, and this usually spurs people to ask where I'm from. She doesn't say a word, and looks up at me, and I smile, and she just nods at me, takes the coffee from my outstretched hand, and I say once again in my Osaka slang, "See ya." I finish my cigarette and coffee, and drive out the empty parking lot up the mountain. I felt like asking her if she needed help before I left, but I did not want to seem like a creep. My mom is Russian, so I look more Western than Japanese. It takes me about 4 minutes to go up the mountain, and then I turn around and do downhill practice. When I came up to the spot where the vending machines were at, I slowed down to a crawl to see if she was still there. She was gone, and the parking lot was empty still. I decided to head back home, as I had an hour drive and I wanted to miss the traffic, so I wanted to get some sleep, as I was working the night shift in an ER at this time, keeping an eye out to see if I saw her walking down the road. I made it back to my apartment without incident. Later that night at work, my coworker, the doctor, and the nurse on shift that night were in the back playing video games as the ER was empty. When the front desk bell rings, we pause the game, and my partner goes to answer the bell. I do not hear this greeting or him talking to anybody. I then hear the door open, and him walking around. He returns a few minutes later, and I ask him what's up. He said nothing, I think. What do you mean, you think? He said there was no one out there. No one in the car park, no one in the lobby, no one in the halls. He said the only thing he found was this next to the bell. He holds out a can of Firebrand black coffee. I look at it in disbelief, immediately remembering the girl from earlier in the night. He said, "Hey, isn't this the kind you like when you go to Okutama?" I said, "Yeah, it is. This can was still hot, like it was fresh from a vending machine." The closest vending machine that had that type of coffee was about 20 minutes away in a local CU, like a Japanese Walmart or Target. I get up immediately, and we both search most of the grounds. I tell we were looking for a Japanese girl, black hair, red highlights in her hair. As we walk around looking, I tell him the story about how I saw a girl and gave her a coffee. We did not find anything. We ended up going back to the ER, and I told the rest of my coworkers that story. All three said I should not drink the coffee and that I should be careful. Strange things have had to happen to me all my life, so I was like, I drank the coffee, as I did not want to seem rude or ungrateful. My girlfriend would come to stay with me in my apartment on the weekend. She lived in Shibuya and would take the train down to see me every weekend. When I got home in the morning, she said that someone was ringing the doorbell and knocking on the front door most of the night. This was the first time this has ever happened. This would continue to happen to her whenever she was alone in my apartment. She said she would always have an uneasy feeling being alone there. Even my antisocial dog would prefer to stay in the same room as her when I was gone. I never saw the girl again or had any strange thing that I could relate to her happen. However, later that year, I got a wooden arrow for burning at the Shinto temple and got a shimenawa for the front door. After this, my girlfriend said the knocking stopped. I have tons of events that happen to me. If there is an interest, I can write out more of them here. Contact with extraterrestrial entities. My story. I don't know where to begin. It's hard to pinpoint how this all started. I'm going to skip the beginning, as it is irrelevant. Myself and a group of 5 or so friends having seen a star that appeared to flash and emit many colors at night. About a week after this first observation, I was walking the neighborhood at 4 a.m. with my best friend. I looked up and saw a solid white object moving at low altitude, and immediately alerted my friend. The object circled the area for 15 minutes or so. Skip ahead about a month, and we began UFO watching. We observed many objects similar to the first. One night, I decided to pick up a friend as well as his girlfriend for a UFO watch. We waited until 11 p.m. and drove to the Menards at the edge of town as the lights were shut off at 10:45 nightly. We sat in the car facing east. I remember thinking, I wish we could see a really good one tonight. Something along those lines anyways. After literally no more than 5 minutes of being parked, an orange amber smart car sized ball of light rose out of the field to our northwest no further than 100 yards away. It sat for a moment and we looked at the object astonished and somehow keeping our composure. The object moved towards the Menards on our left and rose right above the roof and hovered there. This object sat there and observed us as we observed it. We were in awe, to say the least. Moments before it left, slowly lit up and grew to a brilliant light like nothing I'd ever seen, like a mini sun. It dimmed back to its normal size just as it lit up, and a few moments later the light went off completely, revealing a round dark silhouette, and then began moving right towards us while climbing at the same time. It went directly over my car and proceeded to fly south until we were unable to see it. This object was 30 to 40 yards away at most. The following 4 months, we had experiences with these devices roughly every 3 to 4 days. My best friend and I went on my room one September night, and to be brief, had a huge black triangular wedge ship about the size of an aircraft carrier fly right above us, maybe 200 yards above the tree line. There were 3 equidistant orange lights on the rear. I'm assuming they were related to its propulsion. We once were longboarding to Speedway when I noticed an object right above our heads, multicolored and fluctuating rapidly, kind of expanding and contracting. When we both looked at it, it seemed to immediately notice and proceeded to awkwardly zigzag away. This thing surely noticed us looking, as it zigged away only when we both looked for a moment. There are too many events for me to post here. Please share your experiences. This is my first Reddit post, so I might as well start with something good. If this is posted in the wrong section, please move it. I'm using an iPhone 4S and new to posting here. About time I joined the community here. Thanks for reading. I posted about my friends and I going to stall KS. First, let me say that I am interested with the paranormal and supernatural recently, after an event that happened to some of my friends and I that I can't quite explain. That may warrant another post, but we'll see. Basically, what you need to know is that since the beginning of the summer, I have been fascinated with all things paranormal. I talked to the pastor of my church, who explained things to me as he believes them, and they seem to line up with what I experienced. He's pretty cool for a devout Christian guy. Kind of an exception to the Bible thumper stereotype. Anyways, he showed me some stuff and explained some things using reason and logic, so I definitely believe the things he told me, but I digress. So, about a month or so ago, a few of our friends and I went to stall KS to a supposedly haunted graveyard that is supposed to be one of the 7 gates of hell. For any of you familiar with the TV show Supernatural, they filmed an episode there. If you are curious about the legends, I strongly suggest Googling them. There were 6 of us total. The ones that will be important are my friends D, K, and K's girlfriend. So, Stall is about an hour away from where we all live, and we decided to check it out one night because aside from the gas money, we're broke college kids and it was a free source of entertainment. That, and I'm obsessed with all things paranormal, and desperately want to find some proof or experience things with my friends who remain skeptical. As we drove there, I rode in a car with D and his girlfriend. We talked about normal stuff and listened to music. Upon arriving in Stall, it was about 7 p.m. We drove into the cemetery and parked at the top of the hill next to the ruins of the old church. I told the legend of the place to everyone the week before, and D, being the skeptic that he is, had Googled things himself and found that there was supposedly a mysterious staircase under the church. He promptly began to move the rubble of the church around and start looking for the stairs, but no such luck. The rest of us wandered around the cemetery and looked at gravestones while we waited for the night to come. According to stories, if you're in Stall Cemetery fucking around, the cops will be called, or the locals will come get pissed and tell you to leave. We didn't have such experiences or anything even close. One car did a lap around the cemetery while we were there, but nothing else happened. Anyways, it got dark, and there are 2 streetlights in the cemetery, no doubt installed to be able to see anyone in there at night. They used to have a vandalism problem, which came on, taking away from what would have been a creepy atmosphere. Anyways, nothing happened, so we tried to find a smaller, older cemetery that supposedly had some sort of creepy tree and no lights. That was the origin of the Stall Cemetery being haunted. Long story short, we found it, and it was really creepy. It was off some weird back road that I'm quite impressed we found. Seriously, this cemetery didn't even show up on Google Maps. I got directions to it from someone who posted about it in a thread on a random website somewhere deep in the internet, and we found it at night. So, we drive up this hill and get out and use flashlights to start looking around. Lots of the gravestones said infant, and that was it. The weirdest part was the tree, though. It was basically the main part of this pine tree that was really gnarly and tall and was extremely tall. There were a few branches that hung low, but the taller it got, the fewer branches there were. D was running around hiding behind graveyards, fucking with all of us and daring various creatures of the night to come sodomize him, etc. K and his girlfriend were close to me, and they told me they felt really weird, but I didn't. Honestly, I was disappointed in the whole trip itself. Kay's girlfriend and I had the exact same phone, iPhone 4S. We started taking pics of everything using our flashes because it was so dark. She's easily scared, so she was standing maybe 6 inches from me. We thought we heard some stuff, but equated it to animals and then left. We drove home and slept. So the next day, we were looking at our pictures, and I found something. In one of the pictures I took of the tree, there would seem to be a white shape standing there, looking at us. It was kind of in the shape of a human, kind of tall, and definitely not a gravestone or tombstone or any type of animal. It was standing upright. But because it was so far away, we couldn't really see. What the fuck is that? So, maybe it was some kind of a thing we didn't see in the back. Maybe it was a stone. Maybe it was an owl, my friend said. So the next day, we went back to the cemetery during the daytime. There was no branches where that form is. And if you refer to the branches that make that weird triangle, you can notice that in the photo it was moving. I took all 3 pictures, and from the exact same spot. Kay's girl did the same thing, and there was nothing in her photos. There was just that one photo. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the pics from her to further analyze this because she deleted them. Because she was actually that scared. Someone should help me out figure out what these photos are. A new haunting? Please help. My boyfriend and I go on a lot of car cruises. The last one we were on ended out a little weird. We went on a track through the hills, nothing unusual, but as we were driving, I could have sworn that I saw people as we were driving past. It was around 9 to 10 o'clock at night, and we were going 80 kilometers per hour. I shook it off as a hallucination, but now I'm not so sure. Later that night, we went to meet up with a friend around 10:30. We got lost on the way, and the friend was trying to call. The phone freaked out, answering but not answering, but my boyfriend's phone is broken, so we just shrugged it off. My boyfriend turned to me a few moments later and said, "Did you hear that?" I didn't know what he was talking about, so I replied with a no. He continued to tell me that he heard a voice say, "Hello, Jamie." Low and creepy like. I had no reply for this. I had pretty much zoned out. I was really tired and trying to work the phone. We spoke no more of it and continued out with the night. Nothing weird happens beside him losing 3 hours of memory. Until I was laying in my room. My boyfriend, he lives with me, was getting ready for work. I didn't have to be up yet for class, so I stayed in bed. I was under the blanket because he turns the lights on and off as he's getting ready. I heard him plottering around the room, assuming he was getting dressed or whatever. I stayed under the blanket still. Then, I heard the water running from the bathroom and him brushing his teeth. I quickly poked my head out of the blanket and looked over to where I heard him walking. The light was off, and he wasn't in the room, but it felt like someone was in there with me. I shrugged it off and laid back down, trying not to freak myself out. I confessed this to my boyfriend one night. He told me he's had the same experiences as well as someone whispering in his ear and seeing a little girl, who's not my sister, sitting at the table. The most recent weird thing happened Wednesday last week. My boyfriend and I were cleaning out the back lounge. It was around 8:30 to 9 p.m., and half of the noise was silent as the door connecting was closed. Patrick and I were quiet for a moment and heard cupboard doors closing. We both thought the dog was in the kitchen, but she wasn't. She was outside. A little bit later, the dog was let in and she was jumping with joy, like she usually does. Then she went to go into the kitchen looking for food like usual, but started freaking out and walked out of the kitchen, refusing to walk into it. I went in to try and coax her in to see what was wrong, and was met with goosebumps and really weak legs. So, I have no idea what is happening, but something feels off. Can anyone help? Edit. April 10th, 5:22 p.m. My boyfriend just got home from work, came into my room and said last night he heard sheets of paper being thrown around the lounge room. He heard my puppy get up, and she went to walk into the lounge, stop, and turn around. The paper stopped when my mother walked into the lounge. He's admitted to seeing black entities in my room at night, and even the salt lamp flicker, which it never does.